All right, last time we left off, we had talked about the idea that chloroplasts and mitochondria may have lived on their own at one point. A big reason for rationale for that hypothesis is the fact that mitochondria do have two membranes. They have an outer membrane and an inner membrane. The inner membrane is folded, and it has a special name. It's called the cristae, or I think it's actually cristae. So they have an outer membrane. It looks kind of like this, and then an inner membrane that is, and this is what they mean by folded. Like that. That's poorly drawn, but you get the idea. While I'm here, let me point out that when I have all of those folds, what do I do to the surface area? Increase it. Good. And what do I keep pretty much the same? Volume. So what happens is I get a lot faster movement of molecules across that membrane because of all the folds. Okay? And that is why they have all of those folds, is because when we get to cell respiration, we're going to talk about how the mitochondria is involved in that, and being able to quickly move molecules across that membrane is important. The more surface area you have, the faster that and more efficient that will be. The inner membrane creates a space, or the two membranes create a space. There's one called the intermembrane space, and that is located on the outside, or not outside. That's the first space you encounter. So you've got the first membrane, and then you've got a space called the intermembrane space. And then the next thing you have after that on the very inside, I'm going to put this in a different color to emphasize it. This area in here in blue is what we call the mitochondrial matrix, or just sometimes it's just called the matrix. As I mentioned before, some of the steps in cell respiration happen in that inner membrane, as well in the cristae, as well as in the mitochondrial membrane, mitochondrial matrix. And again, that cristae presents a large surface area for the enzymes to work with that are going to be responsible for making or creating, or converting, I should say, converting our food molecules into ATP. So remember, mitochondria are involved in cell respiration. Cell respiration is taking your food and breaking it down in a way that creates from that food ATP. And then ATP will be the energy molecule that our body uses to do everything, to think, to breathe, to pump blood, etc. Gesundheit. Here's a better picture of it. We've got an inner and an outer membrane, and then we have that mitochondrial matrix in the very middle, and the space in between the outer membrane and the cristae. Also related to that organelle, or in some ways very similar to that organelle, is chloroplasts. Chloroplasts, one of their claim to fame is that they are green. And they are green because they have a green pigment called chlorophyll. Chloroplasts are going to be responsible for capturing light energy and converting it into mostly sugar molecules, but then into bigger molecules as well. And they can convert those into polysaccharides, or they could convert them into lipids or proteins or all sorts of different things. But they're taking in light energy. That's kind of the key, that they take in that light energy. Chloroplasts are found in the leaves of plants, as well as anything else is green in a plant. Algae is green because algae also contains chlorophyll. most of the photosynthesis on the planet actually doesn't take place by way of plants, but by way of algae, because of what is the world mostly made of? Water. Yeah. So most of the habitat is water-based, and that means algae-based. So when you talk about seaweed, you're talking about algae. Okay, so you go to Lake Michigan, you see all that stuff floating in the water. That's algae. That's what I'm talking about. You got a picture of that as well. The structure of the chloroplasts includes a area or little membranes, sacs called thylakoids that are stacked up to form what are called, let's make it green because, we're talking about chloroplasts. So one of those is a thylakoid. And the whole thing together is a granum. So if you've got, I think of the thylakoid as a pancake, kind of, and the granum would be a stack of pancakes. Unlike pancakes, however, these thylakoids have an internal space that is filled with fluid, and that fluid is called the stroma. Maybe like a pancake filled with syrup. Chloroplast is one group of plant organelles. Collectively, they are called plastids. Okay, so mitochondria, chloroplast, both have double membranes. On that picture, I probably should have shown you that. If I go back to there, there is an outer and an inner membrane as well here. There's an outer membrane there, and then there's another one inside internally. And then this is the green stuff here. That's the thylakoids stacked into rows of granum. The thylakoid membrane is actually going to be where the photosynthesis is taking place. You can't see that at all because it's yellow. But that's where the sunlight's going to strike it, and that's going to be converted into sugar. Yeah.
Is that the outer membrane?
That is the actual thylakoid. So it's past both the inner and the outer membranes. And it's in that stack. The stacks are inside of both of those membranes. All right. Another organelle that doesn't get talked about very much is peroxisomes, which are specific organelles that have one membrane around them, so they don't have two membranes. And their job is, this is kind of weird, but our body, in the process of performing cell respiration, will produce this chemical that you've probably seen in the drugstore or used, H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide. So hydrogen peroxide is used as a cleaner for cuts, wounds, and it's also produced by our body. And it can be toxic if it's not converted into something else. And so what it's converted into is water. The peroxisome's job is to convert the hydrogen peroxide into water so that it's not fatal to us. It's kind of an ongoing research project that no one really knows exactly how these peroxisomes work and how they are related to other organelles. So you just need to know that they're they're breaking apart the hydrogen peroxide and they're converting it into water. Okay. Come on, move. There we go. Okay, that is it for the organelles. I also want to talk about some other features to the cell that are very important. We're going to spend some time talking about the cytoskeleton. So just like we have a skeleton, our cell has a skeleton as well. So cytocell skeleton. And it's made up of a network of fibers that are basically proteins, different types of proteins that have different shapes. And because of their different shapes, they also have different function. Cytoskeleton goes throughout the cytoplasm. It helps to organize kind of the different parts of the cell into like little places or positions within the cell. So it organizes the cell structures. It also anchors a lot of the organelles so the organelles don't move around. Most of the cell is going to be cytoplasm, which is water. So it's important to have those organelles anchored in place because the water is going to move around. And if the water moves around, the organelles will too. And so if the organelles aren't attached, they'll move. And then, you go to another organelle goes to contact a different organelle and it can't because it's not where it was supposed to be. It's moved. So the cytoskeleton keeps those in place. There's 3 different types of fibers that we're going to touch on. We're not going to talk too much about these guys. We'll talk more about some of them as we go on into the units. There's microtubules, microfilaments, and there's intermediate filaments. And this is a picture where they have stained the cell with all sorts of different dyes, and as a result, the different dyes get picked up by the different fibers. So you see the different colors are all representing different fibers within that cytoskeleton. I think that blue is probably supposed to be the nucleus in there. You can see how the green is all throughout the cytoplasm. The orange is more on the outside around it. And then the green actually does extend out beyond the cell wall. Or beyond I don't know if there's a cell wall here or just a cell membrane, but it extends out. Yellow would probably be the best one here. Let's do that. So you can see here it's extending out. Cell membrane is right in here. Oh, red, that was not the best color. There's so many colors, it's hard to know what to use. How about white? Yeah, this is the cell membrane going all the way around here. So it's orange. It doesn't matter what color it is, but the point is that each color represents a different type of fiber. That is all. Okay, cytoskeleton helps to support the cell and give it its shape so that it doesn't collapse. It also interacts with motor proteins so that the cell can move around. And that can be both move around externally, so move around its environment. Inside the cell, there are cytoskeleton proteins that will actually help things move from one position to another. There are these little vesicles that are actually kind of cute that will move along the tracks set down by the cytoskeleton. So this next slide shows that. At the top here, I have a vesicle. Remember, a vesicle is just something that has a membrane wrapped around it. It's just like you get your groceries, you put them into a bag, okay, and you use the bag to move from place to place. So the vesicle is used to transport the contents of the vesicle from place to place, so they can get where they need to go. And then here we have one of these fibers, and the vesicle will attach to that fiber, and then it will move. It will move along the fiber, and they've actually been able to show kind of with time lapse how this works. And it's kind of cool how it moves. And I'll see if I can find a video to show you on that a little bit later. So going back to the cytoskeleton in general, that was just kind of an introduction. There are 3 main fibers that make up the cytoskeleton. There are microtubules, first one. Microtubules are the thickest. Then you have the thinnest, which are the microfilaments. And then you also have some that are in between that are called intermediate filaments. And they all have slightly different jobs. It's going to talk about, things like the size. Like it'll actually give you numbers on some of these slides, I think. Don't worry about that. You're not going to have to actually remember the actual size. If you just remember microfilaments are the smallest, microtubules the largest, and then intermediates are in between. That's all you really need to know. Oh, there it is right there. Okay. It is important, though, to know that these guys are hollow rods. And their job is to give the cell its shape. It also helps to move things around, so it helps movement of organelles, as well as helping chromosomes divide during cell division or to separate during cell division. With regards to cell division, in animal cells, there are microtubules, and they grow out of another organelle called the centrosome. Okay, so the microtubules are going to extend out of the centrosome. And when they're growing out of that centrosome, they are called centrioles. I know there's a lot of C words. And each one of those microtubules has 9 triplets arranged in a ring. So the centrioles, it's like, it'd be just better to show you, I think, than do this. Let me erase that and just show you on the next page. Oh, that's a pretty bad picture. Let's see if there's another one on the next page. No, there's not. Okay, then. I guess I will draw it. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. How many am I up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the microtubules are in a circle like that. So if you just looked at the microtubule from the outside, you just see the microtubule, but it is hollow. And inside you have, the centriole is made up of these microtubules. So this is the centriole here. And then each one of these little rings is a microtubule. So if you cut through it and you looked at it head on, you'd see all of these little sets of microtubules around the outside. And that's involved in cell division, so it will help the chromosomes separate during cell division. It will also help with movement. Let's see if we've got some other, microtubules also help with, they make up flagella and cilia. And these guys are extensions that come out of some cells to help them move around. So they act kind of like flippers to help or tails to help the cell move around. So in us, the one cell type I think that we have that has a flagella is the what's that? Sperm. Yeah, that's right. Sperm have a flagella. Okay, that helps it move around. Okay. Other cells may have cilia. So some cells may have these little hairs on them. Cilia and flagella are the same thing. It's just a matter of size. If they're short, they're cilia. If they're long, they're flagella. There are cells in our lungs that have cilia, that the beating of those will, if we get some debris into or dust into our lungs, their job is to push it back up and back into our throat where we can cough it back out. Okay? Or blow it back out if it's in the nose. So, and then there's also some unicellular cells that have these as well. So we talked about the paramecium yesterday and how they had that vacuole, that water vacuole. And when that water vacuole gets too big, it expands too much, it will contract. And as it contracts, it's going to expel water out of it. And then the cilia will help guide, is it going to go in one direction or is it going to go the other? So it'll beat at different rates to get it to move around. All right, there I've got my little spermie. And then I've also got below here, so sperm at the top. And then down below, I've got some cilia. And the cilia are moving, for example, some dust, debris out of the lungs and back into the throat. Cilia and flagella have a common structure. And get rid of that. They have a group of microtubules. Again, it's just, is it long or is it short? At the base where the microtubule goes to, attaches to the cell membrane, it's a little bit wider, and that anchors the microtubule to the cell. That's called the basal body. There are proteins that will help the flagella or the cilia actually move, bend, and that's called dynin. Oh, there's that picture I was looking for. Yeah, they did so much better job than I did. Sad face. Yeah. Yeah, so here's their triplets. You can see they have it arranged a little differently than I did, but there's 9 sets of 3. So when you look at it, you're going to see this. But if you cut through it, you would see the 9 sets of 3, the triplet. Here is the cell membrane, and then right at the base is a little extension called the basal body. It's expanded a little bit to hold the microtubules in place. See, I should have looked further ahead. There's another picture of it. Even better.
Yeah.
Another one there. Okay. Dynin is a cool protein. So dynin has these 2 structures that have kind of been called feet, because the dynin will actually walk along a microtubule filament. And so one will attach, the other will release, and then that will come forward, and then that one will release, and the next one will come forward. So it looks like the protein is actually walking. And as they do that, that causes the microtubules to bend, because the microtubules stay in place, so that makes them bend from side to side. I'd like to find, let's see if it's in here somewhere. So that's microtubules. Microfilaments, those are the small ones. So microtubules are the big ones we just talked about. And then the ones that are really thin are going to be the microfilaments. And again, you don't need to remember that it's 7 nanometers in diameter. It's just, it's small. Rather than a hollow tube, these guys are twisted. So you've got, and they're made of a protein called actin. So twisted rods like that. And their job is going to be for a lot of support for the cell, as well as they make up these little hair-like extensions called microvilli that are found in the walls of the intestine. Now, these are not meant, let me just go see what this says. Unlike the cilia, the jobs of these little hairs are going to be, they're not going to be for movement, but they are going to be for surface area extension. So the more microvilli you have, the greater the surface area you will have as a result. Let me see if I think that might be. No, it doesn't have it. What about, no, that one sort of does. Yeah. So this is, can't really see it very well. It's bad when you need to look that close. Okay. So inside of here is the cell. This is also the cell down here. Okay. All of this is cell. I feel like I'm learning how to color again. Okay. But then around it, try pink. Is the cell membrane. Let me try doing this. I'm just on microvilli are like this. Each one of these is a microvilli. Microvillus, actually. Microvilli. And those are made of the microfilaments. What's that going to cause to happen more quickly because of the increased surface area? Things are going to get through here much more quickly because they have so many places that they could get through. They could go through all these different places to get into the cell. So in the small intestine, you see microvilli on the cells because that increases absorption. So more and more food can get in very quickly because you have such a high surface area. Okay? So that's the point of the microvilli. Microvilli or microfilaments also do a couple other things. They work to help cells move around. And now we're talking more about single-celled critters. Some cells can extend out part of their cell membrane. And when they do so, they're using microfilaments to accomplish that. And it almost looks like they're putting forward a foot when they do this. They push some of their cytoplasm forward into the cell membrane, and it pushes that part of it forward. Let's see if I can get a picture of that. So here is an amoeba. An amoeba is a single cell critter that lives in the water. And here he's kind of extending out in a couple different directions. He's extending out here and here and here and here and here. That's all a result of the microfilaments. The microfilaments and the cytoplasm are pushing part of the cell membrane outward, and then the rest of that cell back here will follow it. So it pushes it out, and the rest of it comes with it. It pushes it out again, and the rest of it follows forward. So it almost looks like a foot. In us, microfilaments act to facilitate muscle contraction. So our voluntary muscles are made up of microfilaments that causes contraction. All right, I'm going to stop there because I'm seeing heads nod. But I would like to see if I can find